Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Thanks for tuning in. If you are listening to this on the terrestrial broadcast here in Houston, Texas on KPRC 950, I can't stress enough that you should subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I do so much more with that podcast than I can possibly fit into just 39 minutes a week here on KPRC. So I implore you, the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, subscribe to it everywhere, especially the iHeartRadio app. It's free, but you can also subscribe on iTunes, on Spreaker, on Google Podcast. You can ask Alexa to play it. Just get subscribed to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast with yours truly, Johnny Hamburger, and you'll be all set. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd appreciate if you consider subscribing. The button's nearby, and I know you don't have to subscribe. So each subscription I get, I truly appreciate. No one's forcing you to subscribe to my show. So I really, really appreciate if you consider subscribing. On to the topic of the day, the topic du jour, as I'm prone to say here on Geek Therapy Radio, Bendgate. Now, I'm going to say something here, and I'm going to phrase it in such a way as to impart maximum effect here as far as my thoughts on Bendgate. I don't give a about Bendgate. Big beep there. I don't care about Bendgate. And I know this for the more astute of you who've been paying attention and following Geek Therapy Radio. I have raked Apple over the coals in the past. Most recently for quote-unquote Throttlegate, which, by the way, the whole gate moniker is a little bit annoying, but I get its utility. I get why it's used. It's just a buzz thing that gets thrown around and viral and da-da-da-da-da, all the hype. So I have raked Apple over the coals most recently for Throttlegate in that case when they put the Core i9 processor in the new 2018 MacBook Pro 15 and the chassis could not handle it. I called it as much as a scam. Apple knew that the chassis could not physically, the laws of physics in the universe that set up and regulate the entire universe would not allow a Core i9 to function at full potential in that case. But Apple knew that. They tried to sell it to you anyways. In that case, I still maintain Apple is very scummy with that Core i9 issue in the MacBook Pro 15. You cannot blame the consumer. Well, you're just using it wrong. There's a lot of Apple apologists out there who say, well, the i9's fine. You're just using it wrong. You just need to use optimized software. No. It shouldn't throttle it should be designed with throttling in mind. It should not be allowed to throttle below base clock or sit there at 100 degrees the whole time at just around base clock. We're not talking about that right now. We're not talking about the i9. I don't care about Bendgate. I think this hype and controversy over Bendgate, or this artificial controversy, I don't know how you want to look at it, but it's as soon as Bendgate came out and I read into it for 1 minute, even 30 seconds reading into what Bendgate was. You know, Bendgate started with the iPhone 6 was flexible. Now it's the new iPads are bending. They're coming out of the factory bent. There's a slight bend to them. They aren't perfectly straight devices. Now here's why I don't care about Bendgate with the new iPads. Just return it. Yes, it's stupid that Apple is shipping them bent, that Apple in all its glory and all its majesty and all its infallibility is shipping units that are functionally just fine, but visually and hardware-wise a little bent, hence the term Bendgate. The reason why I don't care about it and why it's stupid is just return it. If you get an iPad that is not to your liking in any way, shape, or form, just return it. Apple is pretty good about returns. And even the store, if let's say you buy it at Best Buy, or let's say you buy it wherever, just say, hey, my product's defective. It's bent. It is the manufacturing is wrong. Whatever happened, it's a defective unit. Just take it back. and then the next one you get will be straight. What's the big deal? You know? I guess the big deal trying to be made here is how could Apple even let this slip through the cracks? How could they even ship units where some of them are bent? Maybe it's not happening during the production process. I know that some of them are, maybe some are. Maybe there's different temperatures, there's heat variance, it's hot and cold. Who knows what's happening in shipping? The new alloys they're using, well, it's recycled aluminum. But they're just figuring out now, we're seeing how that process affects the physical processes of heating and cooling and everything like that with this new recycled aluminum might be causing it to bend. I'm not saying that I know the exact specific reason why these iPads are shipping or arriving, at least I should say, slightly bent. It could be a number of reasons what's causing this. But back to my point. Bendgate is stupid. It's a stupid hype train that we're all getting on right now, that the tech community is hyping on, that I'm not... I guess you could argue that this segment or this video, if you're watching this on YouTube, is getting on the hype train, but I'm trying to offer a different perspective here. Whereas most people are going to just use this as a specific case to slam Apple for something, I'm not slamming Apple in this regard. You know, stuff happens. Crap happens. And that sucks. Any manufacturer is going to be prone to that. You're telling me that you can buy a Microsoft Surface or any sort of PC or whatever that's... If it comes defective, what do you do in that case? Let's say you buy a brand new laptop from MSI or from, like I said, Microsoft or something like that, and it comes defective. Either the hardware is defective, the internals are defective, whatever's going on. There's a problem with it. It's bent. It's misshapen. Return it. Return it like anything else. That's what you can do with these iPads. That's why Bendgate is stupid. That's why I'm not falling for it. That's why I'm not critiquing Apple overly harshly, if that makes any sense, for Bendgate. Crap happens. Return your iPad if you don't like it. Get another one that's not bent. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. A minute here for Audi Central Houston on the way out. Audi Central Houston, just because Christmas is over doesn't mean that the deals are over, that you shouldn't go get a new Audi because they are priced, especially the 2018 models, they are they are dramatically reduced in price. There's an Audi in every budget, from the A3 all the way up to the R8. You get the same technology, the same sexiness, the same safety, the same design. Oh my God. I shouldn't have to sell you on the visual appeal of an Audi. But if you want an Audi, go to Audi Central Houston, and you can start your search at AudiCentralHouston.com. That's Audi Central Houston. Tell them Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am still your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, and this week I think I'm all alone. I have no mental contributors this week. That's the official name for guests on the show, mental curator. But we'll see what happens, or mental contributors. Sorry about that. Real quick, before we talk about jetpacks and other things, I just had a quick idea that popped in my head right before I hit record on this segment of Geek Therapy Radio. Really quick, subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I implore you, especially if you're listening to the broadcast here on KPRC 950 AM, subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. I do so much more over there. In fact, I use the broadcast as advertisement for the podcast. It is almost 2019. Anyways, back to my quick little idea here. I have this idea, and I don't know if I'm going to do it or even attempt it, but I want to. Maybe after I buy a house, get into a house, which is probably coming up next year here in 2019. 2019 is probably going to be pretty good for the Hemberger clan and maybe for Geek Therapy Radio, all things considered. But I want to build a PC. I want to build specifically, let's be specific here. I want to build a gaming PC, a fully functioning gaming PC, if possible, into a Gamecube chassis. Remember Gamecube? Nintendo Gamecube? I think it would be really cool, and this is just me geeking out hardcore here for a second. I think it would be really cool to build a gaming PC, like a pretty powerful computer, into the diminutive chassis of a GameCube. And in my initial searching on the internet, I haven't seen it done. I'm not saying it hasn't been done, and I didn't spend, an hour researching this, but my initial looking into it initially, I didn't see that anyone... There's been discussion on in forums about people having ideas using... what is the motherboard smaller than ITX? Oh, I'm blanking out on it now. But there's a motherboard form factor smaller than ITX that might fit in the GameCube chassis. And then you got to figure out, well, what kind of graphics card is going to fit in a GameCube? Yes, there's technically a graphics card already built into the GameCube. I think at the time it was ATI. It wasn't even AMD. It was called ATI Radeon or whatever. But that was built into the chipset, of course, built onto the motherboard. This is going to be a separate card that's going to have to float around somewhere, even using a riser. It's going to have to be a half-height, low-profile graphics card, so maybe a low-profile, half-height 1050, GTX 1050. And, of course, would be using M.2 solid-state drives and... RAM, the little low-profile RAM. I'm just saying it seems like it could be possible. I'm just letting you know where my geek brain's going. Talking about Nintendo, and again, we'll talk about jetpacks here in a minute. Be sure that you are subscribed to the Geek Therapy Radio YouTube. I think I changed the name to Geek Therapy Radio Podcast. Just search Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. It's there. Subscribe to it. I've got an idea for a video coming up, but I'm typing up the script. I'm typing everything up. It is pretty fascinating, and it's kind of a broader scope. It's going to appeal to more people, I think, than just, let's say, what I just mentioned about the GameCube. The GameCube is kind of it pains me to say this, kind of a retro console now. People think of it as a retro. When did GameCube come out? 2002, 2003, so thereabouts. Way over 10 years old, 15 years old at this point. But the Wii, there's a good chance that your grandmother used the Nintendo Wii. The Wii appealed, that was one of the major charms of the Wii. The major selling point and why the Wii did so well is that it appealed and was used by a very, very wide range of people, of demographics, and of age groups. There were Wiis in retirement homes. People, 100 years old were using the Wii for exercise, down to little kids using the Wii for playing games and things. So the Wii, a lot of people are familiar with the Wii. So I'm going to do a video soon showcasing what the Wii is useful for in 2019. For those unaware, Nintendo is severely kneecapping the Wii starting in 2019. You're not going to be able to use the Wii to watch Netflix. You're not going to be able to use the Wii. I don't think you're going to even be able to go on YouTube on the Wii. The Wii is going to be severely handicapped in 2019. The online service is gone. You can't get online with the Wii as far as the eShop and everything like that. The Wii is basically going to be relegated to a very limited case use scenario, I believe, and that's what I'm going to do a video on. Basically, in a nutshell, the Wii is going to be a perfect 8-bit and 16-bit emulation device. Basically, if you turn an old Wii, you buy an old Wii and you make it just an emulation box, because one of my arguments here to let you behind the curtain, give you a sneak peek at this video, one of my arguments is that the Wii does not have an HDMI output. There's no high definition output from the Wii. Even if you tried, the max it will go up to in the video resolution settings is 480p, 480 progressive scan. So you wonder, hooking that up, even using component cables to an HD TV, it's obviously behind any sort of high definition device, 4K without question. So what's the usefulness of 480p in 2019? Well, for an emulation box, you hook up your Wii to a CRT, to an old TV, that's where it looks best. Native resolution is what it's all about. When you hook up an old console. Let's say you have an old Super Nintendo and you hook it up to your brand spanking new HD TV using that yellow composite cable. This looks like garbage. This looks terrible. I don't remember it looking this bad as a kid. Oh wow, you can really see how horribly it's aged. No, that's because you're putting out a very low resolution signal into a very high resolution TV through a very low quality video input. That's why it looks crappy. Take that same system, plug it in as usual into a tube TV. If you still have one laying around, ask your grandma if she still has a tube TV. Someone still has an old square glass tube TV. Plug that Super Nintendo or whatever into that, and it looks amazing. Like an old RCA or Sony Trinitron, something like that. It looks spectacular and sharp and vibrant, and it looks way better than even you thought it did. I think we're going to move Jetpacks to the next segment, by the way. I'm running out of time here. But you plug in your old system into an old square tube TV, looks brilliant. Tube TVs got really, really good, especially at the end of their life cycle. So like the early 2000s, you get an RCA from the early 2000s. Whoo, it looks really good hooked up to a Nintendo or a Super Nintendo. So that's what I'm saying. The Wii is a perfect emulation box for true, the ultimate kind of retro look, barring actually plugging in a Nintendo, an old NES to an old tube TV. That's where the Wii is going to shine. It doesn't have an HDMI output. It has composite and component. Component is the best that it has. You find a tube TV with a component input, you plug your Wii into there, 8-bit emulation almost at its finest. And I would argue at its actual finest, because you're playing it in its native resolution on the TV it was designed to be played on. That's probably how I'm going to use my Wii in 2019, and how I suggest a lot of other people use it. There's still life yet in a Wii, you just have to change it. It just has to adapt now. We're going to talk about jetpacks in the next segment here on Geek Therapy Radio. Let's see. Let's do 30 seconds on the way out for Audi Central Houston. Start your search for a new Audi, used or new actually, at Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. You get a used A3. You can even get a used R8 if you're trying to justify it. Let's justify it with your spouse. Honey, I need this R8, and I'm going to save money on this R8 because I'm going to buy it used. Well, if you do that, buy it from Audi Central Houston. I'm sure your spouse is going to love you for it. She or he, if you're a woman and you want an R8, I'm sure they'll be on board for it. If you say, it costs $30,000 less than brand new, I don't see what loving spouse would have an argument there. Big smiley Chester cat, what's his name? I'm getting derailed. Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. Tell them Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Sorry that was a little longer than 30 seconds. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. We're going to talk about jetpacks. I promised you we're going to talk about jetpacks. What is geekier than a jetpack? I am Johnny Hemberger, your mental curator. So let's just dive right into it. Actually, I lied. Subscribe to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. Subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. Jetpacks. A group. Oh, I forgot the name of the group. I want to get this right. Testing has begun. Actually, testing is complete by a group named Jetpack Aviation. Jetpack Aviation is preparing to begin the world's first jetpack racing league, racing tournament. That's right. Let me rephrase that. Let me be more concise with it. Jetpack racing is going to become a thing. Remember when drones were, I don't want to say first starting out. Drones have been around for a while, but like consumer drones. When consumer drones were getting big, getting popular, racing was not far behind. Drone racing was not far behind, and drone racing has been taking off, wink, wink, like wildfire. Take off like wildfire? That doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying. It got very popular very fast and continues to rise in popularity. There's an old saying that the first motorcycle race happened the same day the second motorcycle was invented. As soon as there were two motorcycles, we were racing. So the same kind of thing is happening with jetpacks. Jetpacks are getting to the point now where they're pretty well, they're still very much prototypes. Let's just be real here. We haven't nailed down jetpacks. Remember the Rocketeer? Jets aren't rockets, but anyways, we've been working on jetpacks for a while, and only now are they becoming controllable enough. That's a good way to say it. Controllable enough to consider racing with them. So Jetpack Aviation has completed their trials, and they plan to bring jetpack racing to the world here in 2019. We'll see how that pans out. We'll see how that actually works out for them. But the plan is Jetpack Aviation, first jetpack races in 2019. They have demonstrated, there's a video on YouTube, maybe I'll link it below in the description of the podcast. Even more reason you should be subscribing to the podcast if you're just listening to this on KPRC 950 AM. In 48 hours, by the time you're listening to it, 48 hours, it's gonna be 2019. So 2019, podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iHeartRadio. So I'll link the video. You can see it there in the podcast description. The technology of these jetpacks is such that two skilled pilots are shown in the video booping each other. B-O-O-P. They get real close to each other very delicately, and they kind of fist bump or touch fingers or something like that to demonstrate how controlled they are. And one of the reasons they had to demonstrate how skilled they are at controlling these jetpacks is, of course, legislation. Scrooges are going to get in here and say, you can't race jetpacks. That's too dangerous. Let's do a little sidetrack on that. Yes, racing jetpacks is going to be dangerous. I don't understand why there would be legislation against it. Here's the reason why. It's not like the racers aren't signing waivers. It's not like the racers don't know that it's dangerous. Like they're going to sue somebody for getting into an accident racing jetpacks if they die racing in a jetpack race. It's racing jetpacks. You know it's dangerous. Legislators don't need to get involved here. Everybody racing jetpacks is a willing participant and knows the danger. Why would a nanny state need to get involved there? We know it's dangerous. We know. Side note, I think that if the motorcycle were invented today, there's no way it'd be street legal. No way. The nanny state has gotten so nanny, and I'm not saying that I can't understand the reasoning behind it. Motorcycles are extremely dangerous. Every single person listening to this right now knows somebody or knows of somebody who has died on a motorcycle. God knows I do. And I like to ride motorcycles. I don't have one currently, but I like to joyride around the neighborhood just a little bit, just cruise. I just like to cruise 30 miles an hour, wind in my hair. That's all I need. Anyways, so motorcycles wouldn't be street legal if they just came out this year. There's no way. So I understand why the temptation for legislators to restrict something like jetpack racing, but we're not talking about jetpacks for public use. We're talking about it very isolated. Like I said, every participant knows they could die doing it. And if you have willing participants, why do you need the law involved? Why do you need the government involved in that? Part 2 of this jetpack racing segment, is the practical side effects of jetpack racing. Like any racing, let's say NASCAR for cars, for motorcycles, but let's use NASCAR cars. Motorcycle racing isn't called NASCAR. Yes, I know that. But racing in general, let's use vehicle racing in general. Racing in competition is what spurs technological advancement, and advancement not just with engines and, let's say, with turbines for jetpacks and things like that, but safety. Advancements in safety are one of the byproducts of the racetrack. When people say, there's no use for NASA, what has space travel ever done for humanity? It's wasteful. We don't need to be wasting billions of dollars to go into space. The amount of knowledge, the practical knowledge that we use every single day here on Earth, the amount of that has come out of discoveries made in space through space travel is mind-boggling. Microwave, Velcro, all sorts of things have come from space travel and what we've learned in the trial and error of space travel. That's what racing is, and that's what racing is going to do for jetpacks. It's going to just further the technology much faster along than if the racing were outlawed. For one thing, the safety. The safety of jetpacks is going to make leaps and bounds of progress through the crucible of racing. That's why it needs to happen. That's why legislators sometimes can't see the forest for the trees and they want to stifle these things. No. And it's not just going to be making things safer for jetpacks. It's going to be making turbines safer. If you make engines safer and more reliable, that can be used on Air Force One. That can be used on consumer airliners. So the knowledge we're going to gain, again, through the crucible of jetpack racing, that's going to trickle out towards almost all aspects of society, or a lot of useful aspects of society. We don't need to be making laws against or forbidding racing of jetpacks when everybody associated with it is willing. And the benefit it can bring to technology, the benefit it can bring to science and to mankind through it is indescribable right now. We don't know exactly what benefits this can bring to mankind, but we know that it will. We know that making jetpacks safer is going to make the public safer. The technology and the turbines, like I just mentioned, making its way to airliners and all the safety that's going to come from it. We think we're going to get flying cars. I think we're not, because people can't use a turn signal now. They don't know how to use it. They'll just meander across lanes. They don't know. A little lever. What the hell is that? I don't understand a switch. I'm trying not to get too derailed on that, but we're not going to get flying cars because we're not smart enough for every one of us to use turn signals now. We don't know. We aren't capable of it yet. But the other reason is the safety's not there yet. And through events like jetpack racing, we will make flying cars safer. So let's let it happen. Not only is it really geeky, not only will it be fun, super fun to watch jetpack racing, but it's going to benefit science. It's going to benefit the community. It's going to benefit the average consumer. Let's do 30 seconds here, 2 30-second spots. First, for Kung Fu Saloon, 5317 Washington Avenue, Kung Fu Saloon, where you can get the best drinks, the best bar food, and play arcade games. What else do you need in a bar? Great food, great drinks, arcade games. 5317 Washington Avenue, that's Kung Fu Saloon. Go to kungfusaloon.com for more information. And 30 seconds here on the way out for Audi Central Houston, of course. Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. No matter what Audi you want, whether it burns gas or not, the new e-tron is coming out in 2019. You can order it now. Burns zero gas. Audi Central Houston has you covered, and AudiCentralHouston.com is where you can start your search. Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. Tell them that Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Welcome back to this final segment of Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast, the Geek Therapy Radio podcast. You can find it in the iHeartRadio app, iTunes, Spreaker, Google Podcast. You can ask Alexa to play it. Just make sure it's Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hamburger, and you're all set. Also, make sure you head over to the YouTube channel, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. Just type it in there, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube, and hit subscribe as I march towards 1,000 subscribers. Like I've mentioned before, I know that no one's forcing you to subscribe, so I appreciate every new subscriber there on the Geek Therapy Radio YouTube channel. In 2019, I'm making a big push to reach 1,000 subscribers. I think I'm gonna do it. There's a big project I have in the works that I did with. Maybe I shouldn't. There may be a non-disclosure here. Before it comes out. Let's just say I did a project with the DeLorean with a very, very major publication that is set to drop, if you want to say, as the kids say, set to release here in early 2019. So I think I'm gonna hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube within the next few months. That may be just wishful thinking. I mean, growing a YouTube channel is just brutal these days. So the fact that I am even right now approaching 600 subscribers is amazing, because I remember when it was 0 subscribers. So all that to say that I really appreciate if you just consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. I am trying to grow it this year. Let's see how many subjects I get through here. The first thing I want to talk about is Facebook, and I think this is kind of fascinating. Facebook is obviously a free service. That is, you are not paying anything out of pocket to use Facebook. You've heard it said many times that you are the product on Facebook. Facebook doesn't exist as a charity to mankind. Facebook exists to make money. So you are the currency. They make money off of you. Mark Zuckerberg makes money off of you. Companies and corporations make money off of you. That's why Facebook is, big time air quotes, free. So an interesting question has been proposed. Economists wanted to find out how much Facebook is worth to the user. This has nothing to do with Facebook's stock price or market value. This is just like someone walked in off the street. Let's say you use Facebook every day, and they asked you, how much would you pay for Facebook? How much would it cost for you to leave Facebook? Or really what it is how much would you pay for Facebook? And this is kind of an interesting premise. Because Facebook is free, you are not accustomed to paying for it. So let's use another commodity, something that you do pay for, that you pay a regular price for. And let's say you walked into the supermarket one day and it was more expensive. What is something? Okay, let's say you really like Fritos. Okay, Fritos chips, Fritos corn chips. Let's just say you really, really like Fritos, and you're used to spending, $2 for Fritos, $1.99 for Fritos every time you walk into H-E-B or Kroger or Randall's, whatever. Let's say you walk into it the next day and Fritos is $2.10. You'd still buy the Fritos even though they're 10 cents more expensive because you really like Fritos. It's still a value to you. You're willing to spend that much money on Fritos despite the price increase. At what point are the Fritos too expensive that you don't buy them? How high would you go to get your favorite product? $3? Would you still spend $3 on the same amount of Fritos? $5? Would you spend $3 more for a bag of Fritos? $5 for the same bag of Fritos that you love. $10? I think that's a stretch. I think $5 is a stretch, but that's my point. There's a breaking point to where you will stop spending your own money on a product that you like. Back to Facebook. Facebook is free, so as of right now, this is not even talking about, removing the ads or something like that. The reason why there's no ads, of course, on Netflix is because you're paying for the service. The reason why Geek Therapy Radio is free is that I have ads that I run here, like for Audi Central Houston and Kung Fu Saloon and worththewait.co and Oh, who else? 8 million stories. 8 million stories, that's a charity, though. Their 8 million stories isn't giving me anything other than they gave me an interview, and I really believe in what they're doing over there, so I can send you to them. But fact remains, Geek Therapy Radio is free because I do have some paying partners of the show, paying sponsors. Facebook, you would still see the ads. Let's say Facebook is unchanged, and it was either now you have to start paying for it, even though that still has ads and everything. The user experience does not change. How much would you pay to keep Facebook? Like if it's a monthly fee, an annual fee, whatever. And here's the interesting thing. I don't know exactly what who these economists specifically, who they specifically asked about this, but they found out that the average person was willing to pay to keep Facebook was $1,000. Doesn't that blow some of your gaskets right now? $1,000. What does that mean? $1,000 annually, $1,000 a month. It can't be a month. There's no human being. Well, I guess corporations would pay $1,000 a month for Facebook. Doesn't matter. So that begs the question: how much would you pay to keep Facebook? How much would I pay to keep Facebook? I don't have a problem with the concept of paying a monthly fee for Facebook, but it would have to come with some perks, i.e., dramatically reduce the ads and give me more features to choose from. So if Facebook gave an option that, okay, now there's a subscription-based service, we are going to dramatically reduce the ads that you see. You are less of a commodity to corporations. We give your data to less corporations. You are no longer just a cow we can milk. What would you pay for that? Would I pay, let's use me, would I pay $10 a month to see reduced ads and just have it more focused on my friends and family? I think, yeah, maybe. Or would you just stop using completely? Just delete it. Just delete your Facebook account. Never use it again. A lot of people do that for free. Just to get more off the grid, or they waste too much time on social media. People just delete their Facebook accounts. So, how much would you pay for Facebook? How much would you pay for Facebook if Facebook was unaltered? Nothing changes. You log into it just as usual. Nothing changes with Facebook. How much would you pay if they said now it's going to be $5 a month? Would you delete your account or pay $5 a month for the exact same experience? I think I'd pay $10 a month for reduced ads and let me filter out the politics. For the love of God, I think I would pay $10 a month just for that. Give me a filter. Everyone uploading a post on Facebook has to select what category this falls under. Just like when you upload to YouTube, you have to put what category does this fall under, and you have to choose if it's a political rant or article or something to get people riled up. You have to choose this is political post, and then I, as another user, can say I don't want to see any politics on Facebook. I just want to know that my friends and family are happy and doing well, which is what Facebook was supposed to be towards the beginning. Usually it was a college thing. You had to be a member. You had to be enrolled in a college, and that's how Facebook was at the beginning. Johnny Hamburger is battling a burrito. 30 seconds here on the way out for Audi Central Houston, AudiCentralHouston.com, and Audi Central Houston is where you can start your search for your new Audi going into 2019. A3 to R8, every Audi is loaded with specs and features and fuel efficiency and design. Make sure when you start your search for a new car that it starts at Audi, and it starts at Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. Worththewait.co, WEIGHT, worththewait.co. Sometimes with us geeks, we need nutrition advice. Start at worththewait.co. WEIGHT. And I think that's it. Be good to each other, my geeks. I will see you next week for more Geek Therapy Radio. Subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio podcast on any podcast app. Subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. And until then, I'll see you later.